Okay, here we are at the end of week number 3. So it's already 3 weeks into making Simanim. That's a chazaka, which is a good sign. If you haven't started, not to worry. I'm going to do a review of this week's Simanim, step by step, and then I'm going to ask a few questions. There's a good chance for those who've done the Simanim to be quizzed and just utilize the Simanim that are at your fingertips. And for those who haven't jumped in, it's a good chance to see what you can accomplish with Simanim. And I want to make one thing clear. Many people say, what's the point of remembering a topic from, or a couple of topics from each daf? If you haven't made Simanim, that sounds like a good question. But if you have made Simanim, I think anybody can realize it's phenomenal that your sense of being able to pick up what's on each daf and have a clear picture of each daf and be able to retrieve each daf. The Simanim really gives you an anchor. It gives you a foothold, so to speak, in every daf, and you really pick up a vocabulary of what Masechet is dealing with. And otherwise, I'm sure by now is, I hate to say it's like a fleeting dream, unfortunately, for those who don't make some form of a kinyan on what's on a daf. So I don't want to pontificate now about how Simanim can change your life, but keep it in mind, if you haven't done it yet, they will probably change your life. Okay, here it goes. All right, daf Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin is a Jewish farmer because a Yud is a Yid, and a Zayin looks like a sickle. So it's a Jewish farmer. So he said, you have this farmer in his field. All the Chachamim are davening. It's the special tefillas of each of the davening, the Rabbanim at the end of the Shemona Esrei. And then we have over yonder that Chassan who's yelling out Kriya Shema, a bit of a Baal Gaiva, that whole Shaila. So that's Yud Zayin. Yud Ches is Ben Shemona Esrei, a chuppah. 18-year-old should go to the chuppah. So Yud Ches is a chuppah. And we have the whole Indian about Misha Mesa Mutal Afanav, that if a dead person is in front of you, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, conduct in front of a mace. And we also have on Amud Beis the whole Maisa of the Chassid that went to the Beis Kvaros and he heard the two young girls' spirits talking and so on, that whole interesting Maisa. So we have, for our Siman, a chuppah in the middle of a cemetery. So we have the whole question about what's appropriate to be done in front of a mace, which that's not appropriate. And of course, then you have the two young girls making comments. So that's Dav Yud Ches. Dav Yud Tes is a yacht, because Yud Tes, yacht. So we have a number 19 on the yacht as well, just to help reinforce that idea. So Yud Tes is the cases of the rabbis who are excommunicated, the 24 supposed cases where there's been nidui for people who have not shown proper kavod in the doings of Hashem. And then we have as they're standing there in the rabbis in the yacht, we have a person pulling off his shirt because there's shotness. And we have the whole Indian, the sugya of what's appropriate to be done. Alt's kavod Hashem, when you have to go over your own kavod for do what's right. Alt's kavod Shemayim. So that's the Yud Tes, the rabbis on the yacht, and then excommunicated, sailing off, and then one person pulling off his shirt because it's got kalaim, shotness in it. Daf Chaf is a spoon. So Daf Chaf, we had the whole question or the point that in the earlier Doros, Nisim were done, but not like ours, even though seemingly there's a lot more learning going on. So we have, and the example of Mesiras Nefesh, Al Kiddush Hashem, is the case of the rabbi running down the street after the woman wearing the red garment, and turning out that she was really a kusi, masu masu. And then we have, on the flip side, the whole sugya of Nashim Paturos from Kriya Shema and other mitzvos. So we have, wrapped up in this siman, the rabbi running down the street with a spoon after the woman in the red dress, and she yelling out, Nashim, I'm a woman, I'm patur, I'm patura. That's Daf Chaf. Daf Chaf Aleph. Chaf Aleph is a cow. Cow. I thought of using a Bostonian accent for a car, but we're going to use car another time. So cow. We have the whole sugya of Balkari. What does the Balkari do? L'gabi Kriya Shema, and other sugyas relate to Balkari. And then what one does when they walk into shul and see that the minyan's already started, when do they jump in? When do they have to wait? So you have a Balkari coming into shul on a cow, and what do you know? Everybody's davening Shemona Esrei, so he doesn't know what he's supposed to do. Does he jump in or not? Daf Chabes is a cab. It's a taxi cab. So Daf Chabes is the person running to get a taxi because we have the sugya of the Takana of Ezra, the Balkari having to go to the mikveh. So you have someone running into the cab quick, getting to the mikvah on time before minyan or learning, and then we have Tisha Kabin on Amud Beis. So as the cabbie takes a detour into a car wash, and they pour Tisha Kabin on the cab. Good. And then today, Chav Gimel is a keg, a barrel. So we have the sugya of someone who has to use the bathroom. They go to the bathroom before Shemona Esrei. What do they do if they're in the middle of Shemona Esrei? Davening, and then the whole issue of taking off tefillin and the appropriate contact with tefillin and a basic kisei. So you have someone running out of shul into the outhouse, and he's taking off his tefillin, putting it onto a special barrel, a tefillin barrel, where he puts his tefillin there before he goes into the basic kisei. All right? Now, that wasn't so hard. That was fun. And now let's do a little review. Let me ask you a few questions from these dapim, and then I'm going to go back all the way from the dap base, and let's see where Berachos is in our mind's eye. Okay? So we have, where do we have the sugya of the Maisa of the Chassid in the basic far? I was listening to the two girls share what they heard from Achrei Parga. One heard in terms of what's going to happen over the course of the year. That's on Daf Yud Ches on the base. Good. Where do we have the Maisa of the rabbi running down the street after the woman wearing the red dress? That's on Daf Chaf for a spoon. Good. Where do we have the topic of someone taking off their shirt because it's got kolaim, shatnez on it, and you have to do that, it's kavod Hashem, in the mitzvah shatnez. That's on Daf Yud Tes, right, the yacht. But where do we have the sugya of having to take off tefillin before going to the basic kisei? That's on Daf Chav Gimel. That's our barrel there, the keg. Good. Where do we have the topic of the rabbis? Where do we see all the rabbis after the Shemona Esrei insert special fields, which we incorporate into our davening in various points? What was that? That's on Daf Yud Zayin with the Jewish farmer. Good. And one more from these dapim. Where do we have on, let's see, on Daf Chaf Aleph? I'll flip it around. What do we have on Daf Chaf Aleph? That's our car case. That's the case of someone, cow. Chaf Aleph is a cow. So what do we have? That's the case of the bal carry and jumping in and seeing people in the middle of the Shemona Esrei. Good. Okay. Last step before we go for this week. Let me ask you some questions all the way from Daf Beis to Daf Chav Gimel. Okay, where do we have the sugya or the Beruria and Rabbi Meir? Where was that in terms of what to do with the two boorish people next door, living next door? That's on Daf Yud, 10, right? Where do we have the sugya of David Melch saying, Shamar Nafshi Ki Chasidani? Where was that? That was on Daf Daled. Good. Where do we have the question of why wasn't the Carbon Pesach included as one of the examples of the Chachamim saying that that's an example to Chatzos until the morning? Where was that? That was on Daf Tes, right, the teapot. Good. Where do we have the whole sugi of Yisurin Shel Ava? That's on Daf Hey. Good. Where do we have, I'll go a little bit further up, where do we have the sugya where the Seres Dibros were actually inserted part of the procedure in the Beis Hamikdash, and they considered even outside the Beis Hamikdash? Where was the Seres Dibros there? Considered as part before the Shema? That was on Daf Yud Beis. Good. Where do we have the sugya where we have the machlokas in terms of do you have to hear yourself say the Shema or not? That's on Daf Tezvav, right? The banana in the ears. Where do we have the topic of the machlokas Beis Shem Beis Hillel and the whole sugya of what's the position someone should be in, or do they need to be in a certain position? Beis Shem Beis Hillel. That's on Daf Yud Aleph. Good. All right, two more for today. Where do we have the important sugya of Tzadik V'Ralo, and Rasha V'Ralo, Tzadik V'Tovlo? Where was all that? That was on Daf Zion. Okay, one more. Where do we have the topic of hapsakos, where you're allowed to interrupt in the Kriya Shema? Where was that? That was on Daf Yud Dalet, right? The bar mitzvah boy waving to his Rebbe with his big hand, right, as a sign of kavod. And then on the flip side, in Daf Yud Dalet, we had the Seder Parshas. Rabbi Shum Prakarcha, we have his Seder, but we have Rishon Bar Yochai also giving a reason behind the Seder Parshas of the Shema. Great. All right, so we're well on our way. And you'll see I've also posted a review sheet of Simanim. So have a great Shabbos and Batzlacha Rabbah. Keep up the great review.